Sorry this was so late. I got depressed and died.
I thought you said in that one post I didn't read that you weren't doing a best of worst of year of list.
Yeah, I thought that too. Oh well, it stayed in my brain like a parasite, but I did want to do one. Because fucking Christ, 2023 was horrendously shit for music, but my bitching about it was getting a tad repetitive. Not enough that I'm done with kicking it, but enough that I'm not annoyed hearing my squeaky voice whine about it. I still do want to do a video on it, but I don't really have the time to make it. Until I realized it doesn't have to be a millennium long. But it's going to be. I'm going to try out this format from this point onwards, based off the zero punctuation year on lists, now fully ramble-o-matic, on second wind. Is that a fart joke? I've said it too much and I will keep saying it too much. 2023 sucked. Not only was it the first year I genuinely wanted to quit, it was a year where there was almost nothing. Most of the music wasn't that good, there was way too much bad music, the bad music was boring, the news was horrific, and the food was shit. As with every year, there were a bunch of saving graces, but am I going to thank them after a year dumped with Tosh? No. This year deserves to go down as one of the worst. It was repulsive. And much of the time it felt like actually being a new artist just wasn't worth it. Let's get this over with. I'm not going to spend much time on these, but you should listen to any album you have any interest in, whether I say good things about it or not. Both for fairness, but also because I do have weird taste in things, and you'll probably want to strangle me after I'm done. It's not that this album was that bad, but the material on it was from their previous albums, which were all better. Shame, because Hellbent was really good, and maybe an extension could have been warranted. Not the worst, but not good. Every year has that one generic death metal album I run across. This is this year's. Kelpie G. Boring. What even was the point of this? It's supposed to be this way. Boring. Bad. It has one good song on it. Apparently Melanie Martinez has stans. Who is this? Boring. This is the first unreleased, now released, second album for Napoleon the 15th. 14th. After they died. I did like the first album, but honestly I can see why they didn't release this one. It's not that good. If you don't know who this is, they were part of the Dr. Demento show, which was where Weird Al started. Finally, the real entries. I wanted to like this album so bad. Half of it is genuinely good emo rock and emo pop songs, but the other half are either sloppy emo rock songs or shitty pop music nobody asked for. I thought Movements were a new band. I think they are, but honestly this album is just what Bring Me the Horizon and Bad Omens have become, moving to a more accessible genre after becoming extremely popular. Why do bands do this? Genuinely the most generic metalcore album on the planet. Every song on it is a different type of metalcore song, and all of them are terrible. It's exactly the type of radio-friendly butt metal for idiots who think listening to metal makes them tough. A part of me really did not want to put this on. I'm certain that DZ Deathrays may actually be a good band, but fucking hell, this album was sloppy. It starts out fine, but it slowly gets worse and worse until by the end I just don't want to hear any more of it. Might check out more, but honestly not in the mood after this. This year really soiled good acts. Speaking of which... After moving a distance away from their harder punk sound with Fake Blood and Thoughts and Prayers, the band seems to want to slide back into their shock rock origins. The only problem is the album is ass, making a vaguely concept album about violence like Cave World. You know, except we already have Cave World. The result is a fairly meek album that tries to be shocking like Postal, while funny like Postal 2, but ends up like Postal 3. There's also the problem that almost all the choruses sound the same, which doesn't help that the album is slathered in auto-tune. I was tempted to leave this off the list, because I could not remember why I hated it so much for the life of me, until I went back. This is a lo-fi album, and apparently Spare Snare are known in Scotland. Well, they ain't no proclaimers. If that's the case, why is the writing of this album so crap? Because everything else is honestly fine. The instrumentals are fine, if a bit wimpy, and the mixing is pretty good. It's just the writing is terrible. The album is filled with these dad rock ass writings about phones and the internet. It's It's a lot more annoying than endearing, especially with the excessive repetition sounding like an alarm clock. For an album called The Brutal, I didn't expect it to be this weak. Just a note, the previous albums I was divided on sticking on this list, everything onward from this point were basically filler because I ran out of albums towards the end of the year. Specifically albums that deserve to be on the list in my opinion. These 5 suck, don't be confused, but everything before this you can defend and justify. You can't defend these ones, they're all like 0s out of 10. Congratulations, women. Now you too can be boring. This album is mostly terrible, lazy sampling over bland beats with decent flows and boring writing. The only reason it is here is because the songs are just so heinous and annoying, and I ran out of other albums to kick. This is on the list because my nephew wouldn't shut up about Drake, since it annoyed me and my brother, up until I learned that's why he brought it up to me, except my brother hasn't learned and he's still mad about it. The album? Ignoring the controversy, this is a lousy arena rock album about nothing where the singer wails like a goose. The writing is mindless, the performances are okay, but the mixing is trash. And the only reason this album mattered was because of every other fucking reason except the damn music. If this was any other band, this would be this high because this is a terrible album, but no, it has to be because the band is ripping off Who Cares despite them nearing their deaths. It has everything to do with... I forgot my point. You were so close. The first part upset me because it was so tragic to see such a solid and great band suddenly produce a plop, but the second part is one of the most boring albums on the planet. There is one house song on this album that is almost something, but it's so hollow it rings empty. Worse, the rest of the album is mostly just watered down soft cuts of songs about, you love me so much even though I'm terrible, or I hate you so much, ugh, and none of them are good. One Thing at a Time is the most vapid and worthless country album ever. I already told you it was the worst of the year, which isn't saying much. I hate to be an arrogant dick, but what stuck this so defiantly at the bottom is just how useless it is. This is the worst album of the year, easily. Machine Gun Kelly wishes he could make this drool. Besides being the length of a funeral, it's a repetitive, useless album about nothing. Every song is about the same thing, the singer sounds like an air horn, and the people who defend it or say there's some good songs are lying whores who love sucking the tits of corporate executives. With a smirking bird for a singer who can only write the same 3 songs over and over again, continuing to inbreed them in the radio cycle forever. There is nothing redeeming for even a second about this album, and the only reason it got so popular is because of its blandness. It's the red pill blues of the 2020s. What a waste. What a stupid waste of a year, spent giving all the money and rewards to the least talented monopolies of the industry. I'll be honest, some of that anger was kind of artificial. It was a lot more angry when I wrote it, but wait, today's a leap year? 2023 sucked not only because of the trajectory of the industry to only reward its shareholders and marketing teams, but also because the music to come out were after quite high points in music. A low point was destined, but I suspect a lot of the decline in newer music isn't just because of cornered markets, but also in the inability for newer musicians to begin, congregate, and even be accepted. The best album for half the year was a tribute album for the famous Grateful Dead, not only because of the nostalgia cycle, but also because music is gatekept from circulation specifically so label monopolies can avoid losing instant profits. The worst albums of the year represent this stagnation. It was a drool of a year that sucked to stick through from the start to the end. Fuck 2023 and good riddance.
Because this sucks.